Okay, here is a video that we will show an example of how to perform the cutting and pasting, or the capturing and pasting of images from the Imagine Image website for roster card production. All of this would not be necessary if it would be possible for the provider to enable the printing of a web page content other than the typical print the whole page. So you could just as well right mouse click and say print this whole page, and then use use those captures. But then it's just another step. You might as well just use a capture program, capture program, capture each of these fields or portions of the card, and then paste them in a Word doc. So that's what we're doing. So just simply engaging the capture program, and then going to a Word doc. Do we even have one ready? Let's take this guy. I think the generic scenario doc should be fine. And here's an example. We were just doing that for the HISS tank. So we're going to paste the card face for the con mech. We're going to go back and scroll down and capture the back of the card. It doesn't matter how accurate you are with the capture, because you're going to paste it and line them up anyway in the Word doc. So then just take the image, it's pasted in there, and then just flip it around upside down. Why you do this is because you're going to print this all at once. You're not going to print these faces individually. You're going to print the whole page at once. But before we go that far, let's resize the images. You see, we're taking off the checkboxes down here, and we're going to resize these to 375. So 4.375 by 6. And then we're going to do the same to the top one, and then we'll line them up accordingly. So size and position, taking off these guys, 4.375, and then 6. Okay, and then why are we doing this? Because what will happen is these images, this page, will be printed, and we'll do that and come back to the recording, so we don't have to occupy the time right now. Now, you can print this all at once and then laminate it, because it's going to be used with wet erase markers, not dry erase. Well, you could use dry erase, but we found that accidentally wiping off the marker dry erase is not as good as using wet erase, because with wet erase you just have to use a tissue, and it's as simple as your own saliva to just wipe it clean whenever you need to, or just water, whichever is convenient for you. It's not skeevy, it's just that it's water. That's all you need, a little bit to erase it. So you can either print these as one page and then apply them to a card, a tabbed index card, and then fold it, or you can cut it at the seam down here and then apply them individually. I would probably recommend cutting it in half after it's been laminated, because it's a little easier than trying to fold this thing in half and then stick it on the index card. So what we'll do is we'll do that and then come back, and then maybe we'll switch to the webcam and show you how that works. Okay, we are, do I have the right microphone? Yes. Okay, so I've got the laminate, and I've got it partially peeled back, and I have my full sheet of the printout, and now I'm going to actually make sure I printed it on the proper side of the self-adhesive paper, because I did this once before and it was the wrong side. Okay, I got the right side. Now, what's important here is, don't forget, you're going to laminate this side it's easier to put it down on the laminate than to put the laminate on top of it, but it's the same thing. I mean, it depends how what you're most comfortable with. I'm most comfortable with putting the paper down on top of the peeled laminate. It just seems to be a little easier, and then we'll continue from that point. So let's peel this back. You notice I got a little corner started, okay, and this is the way you use laminate. You just basically, you know, fold it like this, and then what you're going to do is you're going to peel this off, and you're going to hopefully not create too much of a curl in it, but don't go all the way. Just wait, and then take your artwork, turn it over, remember, and then kind of visually line it up to give yourself enough, you know, margins around it and so on. Make sure you got it lined up right, and then put it down one edge first. You're going to try and prevent any bubbles. The best way to do that is just put it down and smooth it out, and as you're smoothing it out, just continue to move your fingers down the page until you get to where the fold is of the peel, and then start to peel and press down, and keep doing that until the paper is completely down on top of the laminate. Now you've got pretty good. You should have, well, maybe I just did it wrong. In this demo I may have created a bubble. Looks like I did. Yep. Alright, so I screwed up. And once that's screwed up, you can't recover from it. But what we'll do is I'll try and smooth it out with, you can use anything to smooth it out. Let's try this guy. That may not be enough. Something a little harder, like a thick piece of cardstock. You can actually get plastic squeegee type things. Let's make sure. Can I recover this, or is this hopeless? Well, it might be okay. So before I cut it, let's see if I can rescue these seams or these folds. Looks like it's going to be okay. So you can do it. You just got to be careful when you put it down. Why do you want to prevent these folds? Because these folds will compromise the laminate, and if you do any writing with the dry or wet erase marker on top of a bubble or a seam where you've tried to flatten it out, it might compromise the plastic, and the ink will get in between. But looks like it's okay. So as you can see, I've stuck it down, but that's okay because that holds it in place. You can use that acetate, that laminate, to hold it down, and then just cut it off. And in this case, I found that one of the best things is these massive shears. So just cut it out. You can pretty much obey the lines of the black ink outline of your capture, which is another reason why it's good to always capture at least some black border before you paste it down, so that you can see where to cut. Okay, so it's simple as that. Now you've got your card, and you're going to cut it in half, and here is your index card stock. And we'll use a center one this time. Actually, no, we'll use this. Why? So you may look at this and say, hey, there's only two. There's supposed to be three. Well, that's because when you take the one tabbed layout and flip it over, now you got three. So we're going to make a right faced or a right tab, and then we're going to cut this out. And be sure you don't cut, right through when you are using a scissors. So just kind of see how it's going to lay out, just like that. So you want to just make sure that this lettering is going to appear on the tab. So just kind of line it up, and you can see how it's going to happen. And that'll tell you where, actually you can use an X-Acto blade too, which is actually not a bad idea. Use the card itself as a guide to cutting out the art. Okay, so that's how that's going to happen. This is going to get peeled off and stuck on this side. Oop. I just peeled off the laminate. I'm going to peel off the backing of the label paper, not the laminate. Can be done. You just got to be patient. Alright, so I know that I've already measured this out, so I'm just going to match the corner right there and tack it down and just kind of obey the lines here, and now we're done. So we got the front face done, and I'm going to wait. Well, actually no, I'm not going to. I'm going to cut it out right now. Cut out the extra paper around the tab. Remember, this might look like a huge process, but the fact is, once you've done this for a mech or a vehicle or a squad or whatever it is in your roster, you don't have to do it again. That's the whole point. You can reuse all of this stuff. And that's why we're laminating it, so you can just erase the activity of the card, and then bingo. So there's the card, and then we're going to do the back side, and then we're done. Same thing, just match up the corners and you should be fine. There's a bit of a fold on this guy, but I'm not going to let that worry me. But it does, you see the little fold in there, you might see it. It does compromise the flatness of the paper, so you got to be a little careful. But just find the corner, tack it down, make sure you got it squared, and then just smooth it out, and you're done. Okay, and then same thing, just cut out the remains. Why? Because these are not die cut. Maybe someday we'll pay for a die cut, but then that's just another supply chain thing, and we want this to, you got to be able to do this at home with as little issues as possible. Alright, so there's my card. There she is. This is the Con mech. That's the front side, and this is the back side. So this is the description stuff. Why is this blank? Why is this blank down here? The system management, because we could put it in there, but we'll leave it blank and let the player put the system management details in there. As you can see, it's 1 through 6. So whatever the internal items are that can be damaged on a successful SM hit to the unit, then you roll to see what the item is that takes the hit. We'll leave that there so that the player can change it at a later date. This data up here, can always be the same. And of course the missile thing down here is just basically a helpful thing for missile launches. But the system management is variable, so we'll leave that. And as you can see, this is the new layout for the card, where we've put the row, we've added a row for vehicle, ground vehicle damage tracking. And instead of having the vehicles tracked on a roster card for infantry and all that extra kind of stuff for the game, you can now use these cards for a ground vehicle. I understand it's kind of silly because you don't use all this stuff in here for ground vehicles. You may, but right now we don't. In Hex Command, we don't have this much detail. We only have this much detail for mechs in Hex Command Nova. And this roster up here for the ground vehicles comes from Hex Command Mechanized. And that's all that's needed for ground vehicles for tracking. And that's it. So again, a little labor intensive, but boy is it worth it, because you can make these, and once you get used to doing it, you can make them pretty quickly, and you got a card. You can give it to a player. That's the con mech.